sort of puts respect on the back burner. People don't know what it is, what the real meaning of respect is anymore. They always come out and say, well, you got to respect me. Well, no, respect is not something that's given. Respect is something that is earned. And yet we still have these, especially young people, that demand that you respect them. And if you disrespect them, to them that is reason enough to harm you or even kill you. Well, that's not respect. And I always turn it back. Well, you want me to respect you. How about you respecting me? And of course, they never think about that. Because it's always about, it's the me, the true me generation is the current generation, the younger ones. It's all about them. And I got to tell you, my parents and my father's generation, my mother's generation, even the Generation X, those born that still know what it was like to grow up without a VCR in the house or a computer in the house. We understand what giving and receiving respect is all about. They didn't, my parents' generation, they didn't go around demanding something that they didn't deserve or something that they didn't earn. They worked for it. They earned everything they got. And I watched that growing up, watching my parents struggle, certain times during certain things. As my mother said to me recently, 54 years of marriage. It wasn't always easy. But when you love one another, when you truly love one another and respect each other, that makes a road to success always possible. Now, of course, the success she was talking about is being together, being married for 54 years. In this nation, we always have, well, it's not just this nation, it's on this planet, humankind. We have this notion of heroism. And I got to tell you, the reason why, this is what I firmly believe. We have a rash of superhero movies and TV programs lately. I mean, they're extremely, many of the movies and the TV shows and the TV serials and specials and that kind of thing, most of them are very successful, highly successful as far as the number of people watching, spending money on tickets, blah, blah, blah. Very successful. And some people say, well, it's just good storytelling. Well, actually, it's not. Let me put it in perspective for you. The original 3 Star Wars movies, they were good stories, good versus evil, basically. As such, epic types of stories are always about good versus evil. But when you actually watch the movies, after you watch them the first few times, you really start to pay attention to, especially when newer versions or other movies similar to those come out, and you realize that the Star Wars movies are, they're the favorite in their genre of a lot of people, mine included. But you start to watch them, and you start to pay attention to things like the acting and the dialogue, stuff that you most likely miss the first few times you watch it. And then you start to realize, now this is true of the first Star Wars movie. I mean, if you watch it again, you'll understand what I'm talking about, and you'll probably start to say, yeah, Rod is kind of right on this. But it isn't going to change. I mean, it doesn't change my perspective of the movies, and it isn't going to change yours, because they are what they are. But when you start to pay attention to what's actually going on and how the movies are presented, you realize that even though the story, the premise, the plot of the movie is good, or of the 3 movies is very good, the premise of it is old-fashioned good versus evil. The plot, you may say, well, it was kind of telegraphed that Darth Vader was going to be Luke Skywalker's father, that kind of thing. I don't really know or care about that, but if you, especially on the first movie, the first Star Wars movie, if you watch it, you'll realize, one, the acting isn't all that great. In fact, a lot of it's kind of terrible. It really is. And second, what you might notice is the dialogue really sucks. The written script part of each character's lines is actually pretty bad. It's pretty awful. It really is. And I don't care about, I'm not saying this because this is a modern, I'm looking at it at 2015 back in, what does it come out, 1977? I'm not looking back on into that because I thought this when you were able to watch it, on video and everything a few years later, and then it started appearing on TV, and you got to see it a lot. And I think it came on HBO, and you got to see it over and over again, for the entire month that it was on HBO. So you got to watch this stuff over and over again, and you begin to pick up this stuff, and you begin to see, well, you know what? The dialogue kind of sucks. Some of the actors really kind of suck. I mean, let's face it. Mark Hamill was not a great actor. Even some of the better known actors didn't do a very good job of acting in this movie. But we're not going to say which ones they are. But the dialogue really was pretty bad. And even the great James Earl Jones had to deliver some pretty awful lines. But the point is that what made this series of movies really good was the story. Now, what makes today's superhero movies so noteworthy? Again, if you watch a lot of them, you get past the first one or two times that you watch them. Now you can watch them on DVD or disc or Netflix or what have you, and you begin to, pay attention more to the movie itself instead of being lost in it, and you start to realize that a lot of the lines are terrible. The dialogue is terrible. Nobody would ever. I'm not even talking about dramatic stuff. Just regular everyday scenes. Nobody talks like that. The lines are terrible. A lot of the actors are terrible. But what makes these, and even the basic premise or the plot, in a lot of these programs, whether it be a movie or a TV show or a special, what have you, the plot itself does not translate very well from comic books to so-called reality. The plots suck. So what is it that makes these movies so grand? Why is everybody flocking to them? Why is everybody suddenly on this superhero kick? How is it that Marvel gets their own movie studio and is just blowing things up, and it makes DC jealous that they're trying to do the same thing? We've had the superhero genre for a very long time. And, we had the Superman movies of the 70s and 80s with Christopher Reeve, and some of the superhero movies were good and some of them sucked. We had in the 80s and 90s the Batman movies, starting out with back in the 80s with Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Now, granted, when you look at those original Batman movies, those were solid scripts. The lines were good. The action was good. The actors were good. And then, of course, they moved down the line, and then we ended up with some terrible original Batman movies. But again, the genre stayed alive, and we rebooted Batman, and now we're rebooting it again. Why? Why do we have TV programs? Now, I gotta tell you, on Netflix, I watched Daredevil series. Again, I'm looking at this, and the acting is terrible. The dialogue really is suspect. The script is suspect. The action sequences and fight scenes, you're kind of, what is he really doing? It's not. A lot of times, it's really not believable. The characters really are not the characters that I remember from the comic. But Kingpin, Wasn't the kingpin in this TV series as far as I was concerned. But why is it a success? Why are people watching? What drew me to it? Other than the fact that, well, it's a superhero. I remember reading it in comic books. Now little boys grow up reading, before today's modern incarnations of computers and stuff, but little boys, they would run around and read comic books and read superheroes. But why is it now that adults, who never really, probably never even really read comics as kids, why are they flocking? Because humankind has always looked for superheroes. Now, if you're talking about, we get all these lefties out there that talk about, well, we don't, there's a lot of gray. There's no black and white. Well, superheroes, for most of them, are black and white. There's right and there's wrong. And sure, there are some superheroes that kind of mix it up a little bit. Batman. You're right. Batman says in one of the movies, you're right, I'm not going to kill you because that would be wrong. But I don't have to save you either. And that would not be wrong. But there is this sort of black and white, right and wrong, good versus evil in all of these superhero movies. Something that is lacking in real life. But I say it's really not lacking. We just don't know where to look, because we look for it everywhere else except where we should be looking for it. I've always viewed my father as being my hero. And I know many other boys out there growing up with fathers in their household view their father as their hero. My dad always stood up for what he believed was right. He never backed down. He always protected his family as best he could from anything and everything. He helped keep things together. And a lot of people are searching for this. They're searching for this hero that'll come into their lives and do the same thing for them. All I have to say about that is that the heroes are already there. The real ones. The reality. They don't have to go to a movie theater. They don't have to plop down in front of their TV or rent a DVD in order to find them. I find it interesting that most people will pick somebody as a hero that we think is bigger than life. A sports superstar, maybe a movie actor or actress, or a musician. For some, it might even be certain business people are seen as heroes. It is rare, even in this day and age, that we look at political figures as being heroes. Now, back in the past, in the good old days, we see a lot of hero worship of politicos and leaders and statesmen and such. Not so much today. Why is that? Because the very notion of what a hero is supposed to be is obviously not evident in modern politicians anywhere on the planet. In fact, for most people, in order to find out that, in order to get their political leaders to be heroes, they have to be propagandized and made bigger than life with posters everywhere, and every time you turn on that TV, there's their face or what have you. There is no natural heroes in the political sense almost anywhere on the planet. Especially in Western civilization, we are making these hero movies so big, so huge, because we are searching for the heroes that we have been missing, or so that we have believed we have been missing. And I got to tell you, they're probably right in your own family if you just pay attention. They'll help you understand. And once you understand what it is to be a true hero, you know what you're going to do? I'll tell you what you're not going to do. You're not going to be given a bunch of BS and accept it, Hillary Clinton. You're going to demand that there is right and wrong. Plain and simple.